Hi everybody, welcome to another Thursday Tips and Tricks. Today I thought I would address the issue of tuckerizing. Tuckerizing, what's that? Well, last year for our spring market catalog, we actually wrote up a definition. And so I'm going to read that to you so you can understand what it is we're going to address today. Tuckerize, it's a verb. First part of the definition says to convert traditional quilt construction methods to Studio 180 designs, tools, and techniques. Second part of the definition says to use Studio 180 design tools with a pattern written using traditional techniques. Truly, this is a question that we are asked all the time. How do I take someone else's instructions and convert them to our tools and our methods and our processes? So what I thought I'd do is, with a simple block that we have behind me, I'll walk you through the steps that you should do to be able to tuckerize a future project in your quilting world. First thing is pick out the project you want to make. I was actually looking at this great little book. It's a book written by Amy Gibson, and it's called the Quilt Block Cookbook. And in there, she's got a lot of great projects. But I saw this block and I thought this is a perfect example of how you can tuckerize someone else's pattern and turn it into something you can use with our tools. First step in the process, after you've chosen your project, is to deconstruct the block. And if you watched last week's video, we talked about how to be a block detective and pull the blocks apart and see the different shapes. And for this one, it's a pretty easy block to deconstruct. What we have a simple square in the middle, top and bottom, and on either side, we have diamond square units. And in the corners, we have shapes that I call a shaded four patch. Amy, in her book, calls it a fancy half square triangle, but it doesn't matter what it's called, it's the same shape. So once we have deconstructed the block, the next step is to consult our unit guide. And the unit guide is a free download that you can get at our website. And when you locate the unit that you want to make on the unit guide, it's going to identify whether the unit is made with the block and the basic set of instructions, or whether the unit is one that's made from one of our technique sheets. And so we have both of those in here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So we've chosen the block, we've decided what units we need to make, we know what we're going to do with them. The next step is to determine the size. Now, when I looked at Amy's instructions, I saw that this is a 12-inch block. Well, with this being a 12-inch block, and another easy way to do that is to figure out what that easy center square is. She told me to cut that 4.5 inches. Well, if this is going to be 4.5 inches cut, then I know it's going to finish to 4 inches. And that's an important skill to know. If you don't understand the difference between the two sizes that we're dealing with, finished and unfinished, make sure that you understand that the finished sizes in all of our instructions mean the sizes that the units are when all the stitching is complete. If you measure that block in a quilt, that's the finished size. The unfinished size would be the size of the unit prior to the block being built. So back to determining the size. 12-inch block. Amy had me cut a 4.5-inch square for the center, so I know that that section is going to be 4 inches. All right, so these two, or those diamond square units, are going to need to finish to 4 inches, as well as the shaded four patches. So once I've got those sizes, consult our instructions. For our diamond square units, everything you need to create those units are listed right on the tool. But let's step back just 1 minute. When I looked at Amy's instructions to create this diamond square section, what she had us do is what you will see in most people's instructions, and that is cut a center square 4.5 inches, cut 4 additional squares, they all happen to be 2.5 inches, but you place those squares in the corner, stitch on like a line, stitch on a diagonal line, and fold them back into the corners. That will indeed give you that diamond four patch unit, but it's also going to give you quite a bit of waste around the outside edges. My square tool I really like because it simplifies. I have less cutting to do and it gives me a higher precision at the end. The square tool has 3 different sections on it, so I don't need to go back to my instructions. All I have to do is know how to use the tool. There's a section of the tool that has a window template for me to precision cut that square on the centers. And it's a much smaller square than this square, so that's going to save me some fabric. But that square is cut not a weird number, which sometimes happens when you're dealing with these units, these squares that are on point and have to have a diagonal of 4 inches. So I use the window template to cut the center square. There's also a guide right on there that tells me what size white squares I need to cut so that when I cut them in half, I'm going to end up with 4 oversized triangles. And then, super simple, add those 4 oversized triangles around the square and come back with the tool, and on the 3rd side of that tool, or the opposite side of that tool, there are guidelines for me to be able to place guidelines on top of the sewn seam lines and trim the block to a precision size, exactly 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. And so instead of large triangle waist pieces, I'm going to have just a couple of threads around the outside edge. So that's how I would tuckerize the diamond square unit. Now, let's take a look at the other unit that's involved. In our case, the shaded 4-patch. And what Amy had in her book is what you will see in most instructions. She will take that unit and have you cut each of the pieces individually. The square, 2 small triangles, and 1 large triangle. And precision cut means that those squares, those white squares, have an 1/8 inch increment, and so does the large triangle. They become more challenging to cut. It's pretty time consuming and it's not quite as precise in the end when you do it that way. What I've done with my shaded 4-patch is create a method. Let me see if I can get that up here. Create a method that allows me to make those shaded 4-patches with strip piecing. So what you would do, I know I want them to be 4 inches finished. Consult the technique sheet. It will tell you what size strips you need to cut. Narrow strips and wide strips that you'll stitch together. Then you will subcut those strips, and all that information is on the technique sheet. Take 2 of the subcuts, stitch them together to create a pieced rectangle. Take that pieced rectangle and place it over top of a plain rectangle. And when you do that and make those couple of stitches diagonally across those paired rectangles, you are going to end up with 2 shaded 4-patches. And if you use the numbers that are in our technique sheet, you're going to find that those shaded 4-patches are a little too big. Yippee! That's a really good thing, because then I can come back and I'd use my Tucker trimmer on this one. That's the right tool for the job. I would take the diagonal guidelines on there, line it up with the diagonal on this, and trim that to a perfect size. So what I'm ending up with then are units that are perfectly sized, shaded 4-patch units, and diamond square units. So when I go to build my block, it's easier, it's more precise, and it's a whole lot less work. So hopefully that's kind of clarifying what I'm talking about with tuckerizing your project. Now, there's something that we have at the office that I think you might be interested in. We have these stickers, and these stickers are our Tuckerize It stickers. They are real world bookmark to the digital file, so that you will never be without that unit guide ever again. It's going to allow you, whether you're in a shop, whether you're at a show, whether you're at a retreat with a friend, take a look at the unit guide and determine whether or not you can tuckerize that project that you're thinking about buying. And you know, I like to remind my friends all the time that it's fun to Tuckerize your projects. And one of our certified instructors, Paige Matheson, her business is called thestraypeach.com, has started to create reminders for me. I keep this tumbler in my hand all the time, and this tumbler reminds me that I should Tuckerize everything whenever I can. And she's got also a campfire mug that is just great. Mine happens to be down in the sink because I used it this morning. But hopefully this is going to help take the mystery out of what we mean when we say Tuckerize your projects. That's it for today. Good luck with all your projects. Remember, in these troubled times, to stay safe and stay well. I also want you to be creative and be productive. Have a great week. See you next Thursday, everybody.